Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. I'm joined by Ortal Green today, who's going to be giving schools and learning communities ideas as to how they can better prepare students for adult life. So welcome, Ortal.
Hi, Joe, and thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be spending the next hour or so with everyone.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Nice to see you. I just wondered, before you start your presentation, could you give us a little bit of a background as to how you became interested in education?
Sure. It's not a typical journey for me. I actually studied computer science and started my career in high-tech companies. And I enjoyed working for companies such as IBM and different startups and working on future technology. And at some point, I became a mom. I have 3 boys. And when they started school, I was curious to see what happened in school these days, because it's been a while since I attended school and I wanted to see what has changed. And so I spent time in the classroom, volunteered, and went on excursion with them. And it was very clear for me to see that there is a huge gap between what happens at school today and versus the skills that children need to develop today in order to succeed. As everyone is very well aware, our world is changing very quickly due to the advancement in technology. So jobs that have been there forever are disappearing, and new job types are popping up every day, such as, for example, an e-sport coach or a drone pilot or a social media manager. And the more we work alongside computers, also the way we go about doing our job is changing. And so the skills that we need to succeed today, the skills that children need to develop today are different than what they used to be. Today, they need to develop their thinking, to think creatively and critically, and to solve problems and to work collaboratively. And so this wasn't happening at school. And apart from coming from a strong IT background, I'm also a design thinker, which I'll explain soon what it is. And so for me, I saw the gap and I saw a way to bridge that gap. And this is how I started my journey in education.
Brilliant, thank you. Do you want to share your screen then and show us your presentation about design thinking and your offering for schools?
Yeah, sure. Let me just set it up. Let me know once you see my screen.
Yeah, I've got it. I'm just going to add it to the stream. There we go.
Are we ready to go?
Yeah, all ready.
Okay, brilliant. So as I mentioned, I wanted to do something about education and bridge that gap. So I co-founded Glitter in Minds and designed a program for schools to help them adopt design thinking as the new way of teaching and learning. I'm also an author. I wrote 2 books, Think Unique. One of them is designed for teachers, which empowers teachers to create an innovative learning environment in the classroom using project-based learning. And the other one, Think Unique, Raising a Successful Innovative Child, is a book for parents to empower them to create an innovative environment at their home and help their children develop as great thinkers. So why do we need to create great thinkers? We touched on that at the beginning, that our world is changing very rapidly and the job market is changing. And actually, it's hard to tell what jobs are going to be there in 15 years' time. And also the problems that we need to solve today are very complex. Think about global warming and global pandemic. And so children today really need to be creative problem solvers to succeed and need to know how to work collaboratively with other people. So how can we create great thinkers? If you think about it, great thinkers are basically excellent problem solvers. They're inventors and innovators. They know how to think creatively, and basically they are design thinkers. So design thinking, I'll walk you through what it is and how we work with design thinking. Design thinking is a combination of mindset, methodology, approach, and different tools that we use to find innovative solutions to problems. And we work in to solve problem with the people who face the problem. So we're not solving a problem for people, like government, for example, where they come up with a solution without asking the people what they really need and want. In design thinking, we really work with the people to find a solution that suits them. So design thinking is very human-centric at its heart. It's all about the human involved within the problem space. So what you see in front of you at the moment, it's called the double diamond. And this is the design thinking framework. This is the process that we use to find innovative solutions to any problem. As you can see, the first diamond is all about understanding the problem. And I have to say something about it. As humans, we usually uncomfortable sitting with problems. We usually want to get rid of problems. And so we often rush to the first solution that comes to our mind. And that's not necessarily going to be the right solution for the problem. So in design thinking, we actually spend a lot of time within the problem space. We sit with the problem, we explore it, we really learn the problem and understand the problem before we even think about coming up with ideas for solution. So as you can see in the first diamond, we start with empathize and learn. And as you can see, we diverge. So we open our mind to learn a lot of things about the problem. And we learn about it in many different ways. For example, we can interview the people who face the problem. We can do some observation to learn more about it. We can read research paper or books or research online. The main thing is to gather as much knowledge and understanding on the problem as we can during this phase. And then at some point, once we gather a lot of information, it's time to converge and understand all the information we gather. So at this stage, we have piles of data and we need to make sense of it. So we need to find patterns and themes in the data. We need to find points of similarities and differences. We really need to understand what it means. And from that, we drive in insight and deep understanding on the problem. And sometimes we start with one problem, and after we finished with that process of understanding the problem, we actually realize that we need to solve a different problem, that it's better to solve a different problem than the one we started with. So once we have insights on the problem, this is when we start working with a second diamond, which is all about finding solutions. And here again, we start with diverging and we coming up with ideas. We usually brainstorm ideas with diverse group of people because the diverse thinking help us come up together with more innovative solution. And at this stage, we want to come up with as many ideas as possible, and we defer judgment and assessment. We just come up with as many ideas, even crazy ideas. Actually, crazy ideas are encouraged at this stage. And once we finish coming up with lots of ideas, it's time to converge again. This is where we apply critical thinking and decide, okay, which are the 2 or 3 top ideas that we want to test. And then we create prototypes for these ideas and test them with the audience, with the people who are supposed to use the solution. So a big part of design thinking is quickly coming up with a prototype that you can test. So you learn quickly whether your solution actually works or not. Sometimes you discover that this idea is actually not a good solution, and that's good because you quickly and cheaply discover that, and then you move to the next idea and test it. Or you might discover that it works, but you need to tweak it a bit. You need to make some changes to improve it. So you basically have kind of an iterative loop of getting feedback and improving and testing again, getting feedback and improving. You're doing it for a while until your solution is ready to get to market.
Ortal, sorry to interrupt. I forgot to say, if anyone's got any questions, put them in the comments in Facebook and we can see them here on our dashboard and we'll answer as we go along.
Yeah, great comment. Feel free to ask questions. Design thinking is a superpower that can change our world, and I'll demonstrate it by sharing with you a story. So around the world, about 2.5 million babies die every year shortly after their birth. Most of them die in developing countries. Luckily for us, in developed countries, we have baby incubators in hospital, and they save many lives. But in developing countries, they don't have money for expensive baby incubators, and so they can't really save these babies. So a group of design thinkers decided to do something about it, and they went and spent some time in a country in Africa, and they really immersed themselves with the people there. So they started, as you can see, with the first diamond of the double diamond process, with understanding the problem. And they really took the time to understand how hospital staff members work, what kind of training they have, what kind of skills they have, what kind of funding and budget they have, really understand the day-to-day life in this country with the difficulties and pain points and what they have there. And after that, after they gather a lot of information, they looked at that and thought, okay, what does it mean? Let's drive some insight from all the information we gathered. And there were three important insights that emerged from their research of this problem. So the first one is that there is a need to find a way to cheaply build a baby incubator. It was very clear that it's not going to work if they'll need to purchase expensive equipment. The second one is that there is a need to design a baby incubator in a way that local people will be able to maintain it without additional training. They realize that they won't be able to skill people on very complex machines. So it has to be easy for them to maintain that equipment. Otherwise, quickly they'll stop using it. And the third insight was that spare parts for this incubator need to be easily available in this country. So with these three insights, with this deep understanding of the problem, it was time for them to find solutions for this problem, to come up with different ideas as how they can solve this problem. And when they were thinking of ideas, they actually thought, okay, what is available, accessible, and affordable here? And they did notice when they did the research that many people drive cars, there are many spare car parts, and many people know how to fix a car in these countries. And so one of their ideas was to design and build a baby incubator from car parts. And this is what they've done. They actually created a proper baby incubator all from car spare parts, and it works. And now they use this kind of baby incubator in developing countries, and that saves babies. Apart from saving life, design thinking also drives business success. And again, I'll share with you a story about it. Probably most of you are familiar with Airbnb, and maybe some of you have used their services, but not many know that in 2009, Airbnb was on the way to bankruptcy. They had a website with different listing, but hardly anyone booked accommodation through Airbnb website. And they didn't know what to do. And at some point, one of the founders remembered that at university, he took a course on design thinking. And he remembered that they talked about having a very human-centric approach and really looking at things from the customer perspective. And then he looked again at their website, at the listing they had, and suddenly realized, oh, wow, all of the photos on our website that people uploaded of their properties, they just look horrible. They don't look appealing. So no wonder no one is booking any accommodation through us. And then he did an experiment. He took a camera and he actually traveled to a few of the houses that were listed on Airbnb website. And they took professional shots, photos of these properties, and then uploaded them to the website. And that made a huge difference. Suddenly people started booking accommodation through Airbnb website because the properties on the website suddenly look very appealing. And so taking that human-centric approach actually was a driving force behind Airbnb's success. And they have been using design thinking ever since then to create better services and products for their customers and further drive their company's success. So we saw how design thinking looks within the corporate world and to help save lives. And it is broadly used in the corporate world and actually with non-for-profit as well. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for example, used design thinking to solve the very complex problem that they're dealing with. But how does design thinking look like in education? So I'll share with you a project that one of the schools that works with Glitter in Mind has done. And they used to have an inquiry unit on natural and processed materials. And when turning that into a design thinking project, it turned into a question, how might we design suitable school uniform? As you very well aware, children across the world, many of them need to wear a uniform when they go to school, but no one ever asks them what kind of school uniform they want or what they need out of the uniform. So it's very important in design thinking when we choose a project question to think about what question can the children relate to? What is authentic real world problem that impacts them? And what kind of question we can ask them to work on where they'll have the space and opportunity to really make a change and difference within their communities. And so this is why this authentic question was designed for this curriculum topic. So they started with understanding the problem, as you know, with the first diamond in the double diamond process. And during the research phase, the student explored many things. So they started with exploring the properties of different materials, such as cotton and fleece and leather. And then they looked how different materials are sourced and what is the environmental cost of generating different materials. One of the things they learned, for example, is that growing cotton is actually very damaging for the environment. And in countries where they grow a lot of cotton, some of the rivers, they're dried because they overuse the water from the rivers. They also looked at the work condition at factories that produce fabrics. In developing countries, they saw how people there work. And they also came up with interview and ask other student question about school uniforms in order to understand what other students need out of the uniform. What are the pain points with the current uniform that they have? What are their desires? And they also interviewed their parents about it to understand their parents' point of view on school uniform and what's important for them in school uniform. And also they interviewed teachers at their school to understand the teacher's point of view. So as you can see, they really spent a lot of time within the problem space in order to gain a really deep understanding on this problem. And once they finished all of this research, they had a lot of information to work with. So this is where they needed to converge and analyze their research data. This is where they needed to identify patterns and themes, find what's similar and what's different between different point of views of different people, so they can really understand the problem. And they found something very interesting. They found that there is a common theme between what parents said, what teachers said, and what students said, because all of these three different groups actually said that there is a need for winter items. All of them agreed on that. So as you can probably already see, when children are working on a problem using the design thinking framework, they develop many skills. And when they work on the first diamond within the double diamond of exploring the problem, they develop the skills below. For example, how to unpack a question, how to identify subjective words and ambiguity. If you think about the question they explored, which is how might we design suitable school uniforms, then suitable is a subjective word, right? And it means different things for different people. So the student had to understand that, and then to understand that they need to ask different people what it means for them. And they also learn how to plan and perform in-depth research. And they learn the difference between open-ended and closed-ended questions. As you heard before, they interviewed many different people. And so they needed to know and understand what question to ask in order to get elaborated answer, in order to get the information that they needed to understand. And so they learned the difference between open-ended and closed-ended question, and also the difference between leading and neutral questions. because the way you word your question actually might impact the answer you get. So they learn a lot about the art of asking questions and how to ask questions in order to get a lot of information. They also learn how to define objectives and desired outcomes for a task, how to interview and prepare interview questions, how to perform data analysis and synthesis, which is so important today. In the age of information, we are bombarded with so much information, and it's so important to know how to make sense of all the data and information that we have. And they learn how to resolve a difference of opinion, because when they were kind of sorting the data, when they were finding patterns, similarities, and differences, then different children might have different opinion in regards to what's similar or what different. And then they had to speak with each other and find a way to resolve this conflict. They also learn how to collaborate, because design thinking is a very collaborative process. It also drives their curiosity, because they explore so many new things, and their verbal communication. So, as I mentioned, a big insight from that research was that everyone said there is a need to have winter items. And when it was time to come up with ideas for solution, many children came up with ideas for winter items, such as beanies or gloves. So they actually designed and prototypes these ideas. As you can see here, they bring their ideas to life. And this is one of the beanies they designed. And then they tested it. They let other students test it. And in that school, actually, they let the principal test the beanie. It's a funny story, because the principal there is bold, and he was working with a beanie for a few days and gave them feedback on the beanie. And it was great that the principal was so involved. And one of the beanies that was designed was actually added to the school uniform. And now students can purchase it and stay warm during winter. So as you can see, this project provides students with voice and agency and empower them to drive change within their community. The second double diamond, working with it actually helps students develop many more skills. We touched on collaboration. It's a big thing in design thinking, and empathy as well, because they need to have a lot of empathy for the people they design for. Verbal communication, as they keep communicating with each other when they work with one another. They learn how to brainstorm ideas. They develop their resilience. And this is an important point to mention. In design thinking, as I mentioned to you, feedback is a very important part, as you quickly create prototype and you seek feedback so you can understand whether the solution can work and what needs to be improved. And often when children hear feedback, they take it as a personal attack. And I think many of us adults probably react the same. We think, oh, wow, we did something wrong, or we are not that good at that. But through the design thinking process, when children learn to work in this manner, they actually learn that feedback is a really good thing. They learn that feedback is a way for them to improve their ideas, improve the product they produce. And so they learn to seek feedback and accept it as something very good. And so it developed the resilience, because, we hear feedback from other people about ourselves all the time. And it's important to know how to take and perceive that feedback. They also develop their critical thinking, as they need to come up with criteria as to how to choose which ideas to prototype and test. They're getting better at verbal persuasion, as there are a lot of discussions among them, and they need to try and convince other students that their ideas might be better. It helps them develop their creative thinking and how to come up with criteria and evaluate ideas. It helps them develop their presentation skills, and, as I mentioned before, how to seek feedback and how to improve your product or ideas based on feedback. So what students say about learning and applying design thinking? They actually love it. And I think design thinking kind of falls right into what they naturally enjoy doing, because children, I think, naturally enjoy bringing their creativity to the room without any boundaries. And in design thinking, we encourage them to be creative without any limitation. And also we encourage them to work in a collaborative manner and create prototypes. And children love creating things with their own hands and showing them to other people. And so the whole process of design thinking, I think that naturally it's the way children enjoy and love to learn. And this is why it's always a positive feedback from children regarding any project that they do using design thinking. And it's not just me and the teachers on the ground that say and see the impact of design thinking, the positive impact. There are quite a few research papers today that declares design thinking as the best way of learning. They actually found that children who learn design thinking grow to be confident, successful, well-rounded people. And I'll mention briefly a few research papers here. One by Concordia University actually looked at the link between design thinking and academical achievement in math, and they find a direct link between the two. So they're saying that design thinking actually improves the result in math and provide children with the confidence in their capabilities to tackle any mathematical problem. And I mean, think about it. Design thinking is basically a way to solve problem, and math is all about solving problems. Another research paper by Hacettepe University found that design thinking promotes a higher level of thinking and therefore drives better academic achievement overall. And the last one I'll mention was performed by North Carolina State University, where they found that design thinking students develop collaborative problem-solving skills, creative and critical thinking, empathy, social skills, teamwork skills, and a growth mindset. Basically, all of these wonderful 21st century skills that you probably hear a lot about. But what happens to teachers when they adopt design thinking? So we looked at students, and now it's time to see what happens to teachers when they adopt this way of teaching. What I see and what I hear from teachers is that design thinking really transforms their thinking and help them create better learning experiences. As you can see here, Hayden Callahan said, the biggest surprise for me is that it not only shifted the kids' thinking, it shifted my thinking as well in the way that I look to design project-based inquiry experiences in the future. So it really helped him change his perspective and view about teaching across the board. Another impact that teachers experience is that it helps them with performing their job. They actually find it easier to be a teacher. And this is because design thinking gives them the framework to work with, that double diamond that we looked at. So when they need to plan their lessons, when they're in the classroom doing different things with their students, they always know what is the framework, what is the process they need to go through. And that makes their lives as teachers easier. It also helps teachers to create an environment where students have a voice and agency. And as you can see here, what Grace is saying, that it opened up her mind about exploring different types of teaching and allows her to allow the kids to have more say in what they would like to do in their learning, which is, in my mind, just brilliant. So design thinking also has a positive impact on literacy. As you probably are well aware, literacy is about thinking deeply and creatively and critically about the text that students learn, and design thinking develop these skills. And also because they develop their analytical skills, they are able to perform much deeper classroom discussions around any text that you might read or work with your students. It also developed a deeper level of understanding, as you saw children performing a lot of data analysis and data synthesis. They learn to really understand and interpret the information that in front of them. And also design thinking develop listening and communication skills, which are very important in literacy. Impact on math, we touched about it before in the research that was specific about the direct link between academic result in math and design thinking. So design thinking enhances math skills because, again, students learn to analyze, find patterns, understand and connect different concepts. It also helped them look at problems from different angles and find different solutions. So it opened their minds for different options. And they basically learn how to apply math as well, knowledge to solve real world problems. And you can see here what Hayden is saying, that students are becoming better at interpreting. And if you think about math, it's about interpreting graphs and data. And design thinking basically help them get better in math and literacy and in every subject that they learn at school. The impact on STEM. So STEM is really big around the world. Everyone is talking about STEM. And when you think about STEM, basically, what does it mean? The meaning of STEM is applying your knowledge in science or technology or math or engineering to solving real world problems. So when you think about it, STEM goes hand in hand with design thinking, because design thinking is all about solving real world problems. And by learning design thinking and applying that at school, your students become great problem solvers. So they'll know how to apply the STEM knowledge into solving problems. Well, we looked at the impact on inquiry units, or PBL, and you saw an example for project. And design thinking really enables you to provide your students with authentic, rich projects, the kind of project that will give them voice and agency and empower them to make a difference, make changes within their communities. And I mentioned at the beginning that design thinking is really is human-centric. It's a lot about the humans. We always see what the humans, look into humans, what they feel, what they think, what their pain points are. And just by adopting design thinking as a way of teaching, teachers actually change how they look at everything, in terms of they looking at everything while putting the students at the heart, at the center of everything. And it impacts not only how they teach different subjects, it also impacts how they deal with behavior issues and how they go about behavior management. So to summarize, adopting design thinking enables schools to do many things: to cultivate a community of growth mindset learners, to develop a safe environment to experiment and fail, to create an innovative learning environment, to foster perseverance in students by choosing tasks that are challenging, to cultivate curious lifelong learners. And we all know how important it is to become lifelong learners, as all of us have to keep learning all the time. It creates great thinkers, communicators, and researchers, and it empowers teachers to create an environment where students thrive. So I'll just close off with a principal point of view on adopting design thinking at his school as a way of teaching and learning. So he started by talking about design thinking from the student perspective, how it gives them permission to fail and trial and fail and trial until they narrow it down. And they understand what they want to achieve from what they're doing. And another big thing out of design thinking, he said that rather than thinking they have the answer, they actually know they got the answer. And the difference between thinking and knowing is huge. And from the teacher's perspective, the impact on the teachers, he said that design thinking gives them permission to challenge the kids a bit more and dig deeper. That teachers learn how to set a safe environment where they can challenge their student, as the right answer isn't always the first one. And that rolls through to other parts of teaching as well, such as English and math. And so it's a better mindset for the teachers as well. And I reached the end of the presentation on design thinking. So I'm happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you all. So that was amazing, really inspiring. I've got some questions. So I was just wondering about the Glittering Minds Schools programme. Is it like a one-off project that gets implemented in, say, one subject area for a term or something? Or is it more like training for teachers in design thinking, which is then kind of like a philosophy that underpins everything that's delivered in the learning community?
Yeah, it's a second one, spot on. So it's basically teaching teachers design thinking and how to use that as a framework for teaching. And so they can apply to anything they do, whether they teach math or project or STEM or whatever, English, whatever they're teaching. It becomes the framework they work with. So basically, we start by teaching the teachers design thinking, and they going through their own project, learning by doing. That's the best way to go about it. And then they are given a ready-made project to start with to kick it off and help their student learn design thinking. And then from there on, they get a kind of a guide to help them plan any future projects using the design thinking framework.
Okay. And is it delivered online or is it in person?
Yeah, so it's all online now. Since COVID, we shifted it to be online. So anyone at any school across the globe can consume that program. It's all online on demand in times that are suitable for you.
Great. And so it's relevant to all countries and all curriculums. Doesn't matter what national curriculum you're following.
Absolutely, because it's not about the curriculum, it's about the way you teach, the
Yeah.
framework that you use, your pedagogy. And so we have, for example, teachers in Madagascar that are working with this framework, which is amazing, and teachers in the USA and Australia and UK, so all around the globe. It's really wonderful.
Brilliant. I think that's all my questions. Yeah, that's mainly it. Did you want to say any more about your books? So you've got one for parents and one for schools.
Yeah, so if teachers, because I know in regards to bringing a program to school, it's not a teacher's decision. It needs to go through a proper process. But if teachers want to individually go about it, they can start by reading my book, Think Unique: A Comprehensive Guide to Cultivating Tomorrow's Innovator Through Project-Based Learning. This book actually has everything they need to know in order to, for example, run project in the way that I showed in this presentation. And there are many activities that they can use in the classroom to help the children develop their innovative thinking. And so it's a great book for teachers who want to teach differently, because it's a step-by-step guide. And then they don't need to wait for the whole school to decide on doing that program or anything like that. They can just purchase the book and follow the guide. And I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone. My email is here on this slide, so feel free to contact me. I'll be more than happy to answer any question and have a conversation about it.
Brilliant, thank you. So your contact details are on that slide there. I'm just thinking if anyone hasn't managed to watch the whole thing till the end, could you pop those details into the comments in the Facebook group as well?
Yes, for sure. I'll do that. Absolutely.
Great. And I think you've got an amazing video as well, haven't you, of that project around school uniform?
Oh yeah, there are two short videos about two different projects. One is about the school uniform, and the other one is also a beautiful one that shows how different generation within the community can come together. And it's beautiful to watch because you see, year 4 students connecting with 90 years old from a nursing home next to their school, which is just beautiful to watch. So definitely we can add the links to these two videos if people want to watch them. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. We'll keep in touch. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. Thank you for, allowing me to share design thinking with everyone else. It's important that people we know about other ways to think and other ways to teach. So thank you. I was I'm really happy I got this opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. It's been really inspiring. Thank you. Keep in touch and let us know how it all goes. All the best with the book.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Bye for
Bye.
now. Bye.
Bye.